Ferrari has made a big mess with its development direction after a solid start to the 2024 Formula One Championship. This is the situation that perfectly captures what has happened over the past few months, and regardless of what some fans wrote to us, this is not putting down the team or doubting everything that Ferrari is doing. These are clear facts, and stating the sad truth does not mean that as a fan, you don't support your team, regardless of the sport. Burying your head in the sand and ignoring the obvious problems does not make one a more loyal fan. No one is saying that Fred Vasseur or any other team member should be fired or that each mistake should be penalized, but constructive criticism that is based on facts and logic, with an aim to bring out the best, must be appreciated and valued. Criticism without any genuine motive should be entertained but not accepted. And how can one be satisfied when the company management seems to be very happy? This is supported by Frederic Vasseur and Benedetto Vigna, who provide percentages and numbers to back up their claims. In fact, if we look at last Formula One season, the points scored are indeed double, and the gap with Red Bull is certainly smaller. Nevertheless, one cannot be ecstatic when the underlying condition after almost 17 years remains the same, continuing to lose without remedy. There is also another issue that needs to be mentioned, a fact that completely downplays the recent results achieved by Ferrari in Formula One. We refer to the comparison with McLaren, which currently stands as the benchmark in the top category. The British team started from a very low point during the 2023 racing season. Until last June, in fact, the team was lingering in the middle of the standings, fighting to score points. Andrea Stella was very candid on the sidelines of the preseason tests. He had warned everyone that it would take time to get back to the top. However, a promise was kept, as the first aerodynamic update package transformed the MCL-38. From then on, the papaya-colored cars consistently fought for the podium. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were the protagonists of a great comeback that brought the team to fourth place overall, overtaking Aston Martin. A stunning result that clarified one thing: with the right technical ideas in F1, you can do very well, and you don't need Adrian Newey to go faster than Red Bull. Just consider the current performance of the MCL-38, a car capable of performing really well. If we reflect on the elements previously mentioned, perhaps Ferrari should be a little less happy. We say this because McLaren started from far behind, and within 12 months, under the same regulatory framework, they climbed the rankings to reach the top in terms of performance, something that the prancing horse just can't seem to do. The Maranello team lost its way at the crucial moment in the 2024 Formula One season. But when it seemed like they were close to reaching the top, the crisis hit, due to updates that don't work and many other problems. Recently, we have carefully analyzed all of Ferrari's problems, and we're not just referring to the bouncing. Aerodynamic bouncing is not the cause of all the issues. Without a doubt, this phenomenon has hindered the ambitions of the Red Team in Formula One. There are very few doubts about this factor. Charles Leclerc is confident that the Maranello team has now gained a much clearer understanding of the bouncing issue that has recently hindered its Formula One performance. Last winter, the Italian side successfully addressed the unpredictable behavior that plagued the SF-24's predecessor, creating a car that briefly positioned itself as Red Bull's primary challenger in the start. After Charles Leclerc's victory in Monaco closed the gap to Red Bull to just 24 points, Ferrari's form has since slipped, dropping them to third behind McLaren in the standings. The Maranello team's decline has been linked to an upgrade introduced in Spain, which included a redesigned floor that led to severe bouncing at high speeds. To address this, Ferrari reverted to the pre-Barcelona setup for Silverstone's high-speed circuit and introduced further revisions in Hungary to mitigate the issue. Despite a lackluster performance in Belgium, where Charles Leclerc finished a disappointing third, Ferrari acknowledged that more substantial changes are needed. Nonetheless, Charles Leclerc, who has experimented with aggressive setups to resolve the problem, remains optimistic that the Italian side has made real progress with its latest developments. The Monegasque driver recently shared in an interview with Autosport that the turning point seemed to occur from the Spanish Grand Prix onwards when they introduced a new element to the car. While the numbers looked promising, it also led to significant bouncing issues that the team struggled to manage. He mentioned that, over the last 4 races, he had adopted a particularly aggressive approach to the setup in an attempt to find solutions, always aiming to extract the last fractions of performance. However, he noted that when a car experiences bouncing, it becomes unpredictable, requiring a more cautious approach to avoid issues. This was not typically his preferred method, so he acknowledged that it caused him to face greater difficulties. He went on to explain that this wasn't the primary problem in recent races. Instead, it was more about pushing the car to its limits to extract performance and gain understanding, which ultimately led to a lack of consistency. He attributed this mainly to the bouncing, which created the inconsistencies observed in the last few races and contributed to their struggles. Reflecting on the tests he has been conducting in 2024, Charles Leclerc compared them to the experiments Ferrari undertook in the previous season that led to a late-season improvement. He recalled how last year, starting in Zandvoort, the team decided to focus on learning from certain races, even if they weren't expected to perform well, with the goal of improving in future races. He believes they have followed a similar process in the last few races of this season, though this time they sacrificed more races to gain a deeper understanding of the car's issues. Charles Leclerc expressed confidence that they had learned a great deal from this approach. But regardless of the bouncing problems, several headaches were already present before the Spanish Grand Prix and at the Circuit de Catalunya. Without the new floor, the limits of the SF-24 car emerged aggressively. In fact, although Charles Leclerc did not use the latest updated version, the handling of the Italian car was far from good. The Ferrari 2024 F1 car has always suffered from excessive rotation, an endemic characteristic of the single-seater that seems incurable. Not to mention the narrow setup window, which has always limited performance on tracks where the transition between fast and slow corners is crucial, with or without the new floor. Furthermore, the level of rear downforce has never seemed adequate. The same goes for drag. The new inverted side pods introduced at the Imola Grand Prix offered minimal advantages. Clearing space in the undercut area only helps if the airflow is managed optimally. On the contrary, the problems increase, and the correct operating point of the F1 disappears. We can never know with absolute certainty what happened at Ferrari. Only the sporting management knows the mistakes that were made inside out. However, the behavior of the SF-24 on the track can explain the car's shortcomings. One of these undoubtedly includes the effectiveness of the suspension systems. The front is very solid, often too much so. This factor unbalances the car, as the rear does not show the same level of competitiveness and cannot keep up with the front end. To balance the aerodynamic platform, therefore, a compromise is sought, which automatically reduces performance considerably. The correction to the floor introduced at the Hungarian Grand Prix worked halfway. We saw this clearly in Belgium, where aerodynamic bouncing was present. On the second sector of a single lap, it was limiting, while in the race it appeared in the last stint when cornering speeds increased with lighter fuel loads. This factor had a significant impact in the final part of the race, favoring Piastri's comeback and making it impossible to match Mercedes's pace. Ferrari, without former technical director Enrico Cardile, is making every effort to further update the SF-24. This work, led by Diego Tondi, involves several areas of the F1 car that are currently being modified. One of these concerns the suspension systems. For this reason, various changes to the internal components are being considered, which, theoretically, should allow the Maranello team to achieve better performance. The aeromechanical interaction is crucial under the current regulations, and the team is convinced that these updates will put the car back on the right track. The question remains when.